It was just before dawn when he heard the scratching. Not loud, not desperate, just enough to wake him from a light sleep and make him sit up in bed, listening. The house was quiet otherwise. No wind, no passing cars. He told himself it was probably a branch brushing the porch or a raccoon nosing around the trash again. But the sound came again, slower this time, followed by something else, a faint whimper. He pulled on his jacket without turning on the light and walked toward the front door, each step feeling heavier than it should. He did not open it right away. He stood there, hand on the knob, listening. The whimper came again, closer now, and he felt a tightening in his chest he could not explain. When he finally opened the door, the cold air rushed in first. Then he saw them. 3 small shapes huddled together on the porch, pressed so close they looked like one trembling thing. Puppies, very young. Their fur was damp and matted, their bodies shaking so hard he could see it even in the dim light. One lifted its head and looked at him, not barking, not moving forward, just watching. He did not know what to do. He had never owned a dog. He worked long hours, he traveled sometimes. This was not part of his life plan. But they were there, and they were cold, and the sun was still far from rising. He crouched down slowly, keeping the door half open behind him as if he might need to retreat. The puppies did not run, they barely moved at all. Their sides rose and fell fast, shallow breaths fogging the air. He noticed then how thin they were, not sick-looking exactly, but worn down, as if the night had taken something out of them they did not have much of to begin with. He reached out a hand, then stopped himself. Strangers scared animals, he knew that much. He spoke softly instead, words without meaning, just sound. The puppy closest to him shifted, pressing closer to the others. Another made a small sound, not quite a cry. He glanced down the steps, then up the empty road. No car, no person, no sign that anyone was coming back for them. He wondered how long they had been there. Minutes? Hours? All night? The porch light cast a weak yellow circle around them, and beyond that was only darkness. He felt the weight of a decision settling on him. If he closed the door, he would carry this moment with him anyway. If he opened it wider, there was no pretending later that it had not happened. He went inside and grabbed an old towel from the laundry room. When he came back, the puppies were still there, exactly where he had left them. That, somehow, made it worse. He laid the towel out and nudged it closer with his foot. One puppy sniffed at it, then stepped onto it, its legs unsteady. The others followed. He could see now that one of them was smaller than the rest, its head tucked low, eyes half closed. He hesitated again, then scooped them together, surprised by how light they were. Their bodies were warm, despite the cold, warmth they were losing fast. He brought them inside and shut the door, leaning against it for a moment as if he needed the support. The puppies squirmed weakly in his arms, then settled. He set them down near the heater vent and wrapped the towel around them. As he watched them, another thought crept in, uninvited and sharp. Puppies that young did not wander far on their own. Someone had brought them here, or they had followed someone. Either way, they had not come by accident. He knelt there, listening to the quiet hum of the heater and the small sounds of their breathing. One puppy lifted its head again and looked at him, the same steady look from before. Not pleading, not afraid, just there. He felt a pull, not of affection yet, but of responsibility, heavy and uncomfortable. He reached for his phone, then stopped. Who would he even call at this hour? The shelter would not open until later. Animal control would take them, but he did not know what that would mean for 3 small, shivering puppies found before sunrise. He sat back on his heels, rubbing his hands together, trying to warm them. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten, a thin gray line on the horizon. Inside, 3 lives waited quietly, as if they had brought him to the edge of something he could not yet see. By the time the sun finally rose, he had not gone back to bed. He sat on the floor, a few feet away, watching the puppies as they slept in a loose pile, their bodies rising and falling more evenly now. The smallest one twitched in its sleep, a soft sound escaping its nose. He wondered if they were dreaming or just reacting to warmth after a long night. He made coffee and let it go cold on the counter. Every few minutes, he looked back at them, checking for movement, for breath, for any sign that this fragile calm might break. He searched online with one hand, slow and distracted, reading about how to care for puppies he had never expected to meet. He learned they were likely 6 or 7 weeks old, too young to be alone, too young to have survived long outside. That fact settled in his chest and stayed there. Someone had made a choice somewhere, and it had ended on his porch. He did not know yet what that said about him, only that the weight of it felt real. When the puppies woke, it was not all at once. One stirred, then another. They blinked at the room, noses working, trying to understand this new place. The largest one stood and took a few careful steps, slipping slightly on the floor. He watched, ready to intervene, but the puppy steadied itself and kept going, sniffing at the baseboard, the chair leg, the air. The others followed more slowly. There was no barking, just soft sounds and cautious movement. He filled a shallow bowl of water and set it down. They approached it together, then backed away, unsure. He dipped his finger in and let a drop fall to the floor. One puppy licked it, surprised, then returned to the bowl. Soon all 3 were drinking, awkward and clumsy, water spilling onto the floor. He felt a small release in his chest watching them. They were alive. They were responding. That had to mean something. Food was harder. He did not have anything meant for dogs, let alone puppies. He mashed a little plain rice and chicken he had left over from the night before, unsure if it was the right thing. He placed it down and waited. The puppies sniffed, hesitated, then one began to eat. The others joined in, slow at first, then with more confidence. He sat back against the cabinet and watched, the room quiet except for the small sounds of eating. It felt strangely intimate, this simple act of feeding. He realized how quickly the idea of temporary had started to blur. These were not objects he could set aside until business hours. They were here, now, needing things from him he was still learning how to give. As the morning wore on, doubts crept back in. He thought about his schedule, about the trip he was supposed to take next week, about the cost of vet visits, vaccinations, food, about space, about responsibility stretching forward into days and years he had not planned for. He reminded himself again that this did not have to be permanent. Shelters existed for a reason, foster networks, people who were prepared. He could do the right thing without doing everything. Still, when he reached for his phone to make a call, he found himself watching the puppies instead. The smallest one had curled up near his foot, not touching, but close. The others lay nearby, eyes half closed. He stayed still, afraid to move and break whatever fragile trust was forming. He wondered if they would remember this place later, or if it would blur into a series of stops and starts, warmth and cold, faces coming and going.
Late in the morning, he finally called the local shelter. He explained what had happened, where he lived, how old the puppy seemed. The woman on the phone was kind, but tired. She told them they were full, that intake was limited, that puppies that young needed fosters immediately, or they risked being moved again within days. She asked if he could keep them for a short time, just until space opened up. He said yes before he had time to think it through. When he hung up, he sat there with the phone in his hand, staring at the wall. A short time. He repeated the words to himself. The puppies slept on, unaware of the arrangement being made around them. Outside, the day moved forward, normal and unconcerned. Inside, he felt himself standing at the beginning of something he had not chosen but could no longer ignore, and he did not yet know where it would lead. He spent the afternoon rearranging his life in small, practical ways. A blanket became a bed. A cardboard box became a barrier to keep the puppies in one safe corner of the living room. He moved shoes off the floor, pushed a chair against an outlet, rolled up the rug he liked because it suddenly felt fragile. The puppies followed him with their eyes as he worked, their heads turning in unison, curiosity beginning to replace caution. Every so often, one would stand and take a few steps toward him, then stop, as if remembering it was still unsure about this new, tall creature. He moved slowly, careful not to startle them. Each small adjustment felt like a quiet admission that this was no longer just about getting through the morning. He told himself again that this was temporary, but he noticed how he kept using words like "for now" and "just in case," leaving space for something he was not ready to name. In the early afternoon, he heard a car slow outside. His chest tightened before he could stop it. He looked out the window and saw a woman walking up the road, scanning the ground, her phone in her hand. For a brief moment, he wondered if this was it, if she was looking for them. He opened the door and stepped onto the porch. The woman looked up, surprised, then asked if he had seen any puppies. His heart beat harder. He asked what they looked like. She described 3 puppies, about the right size, the right colors. He waited, then asked how she knew them. She hesitated before saying she'd seen them near a ditch down the road the night before, but hadn't been able to catch them. She was worried they'd wandered off. He told her they were safe. He did not invite her inside. Not yet. Something held him back. She seemed relieved, thanked him, and said she would let the local rescue group know they had been found. She left without asking more. He stood there after she was gone, the air suddenly colder, wondering what he had just done by not saying everything. Inside, the puppies had woken again. The smallest one whined softly, a thin sound that cut through his thoughts. He knelt down and checked them, running his hand lightly along their backs. Their fur was beginning to dry, fluffing up in uneven patches. They leaned into his touch without fully understanding it, bodies warm and solid under his hand. He thought about the woman's face, the way she had looked relieved but not surprised. He thought about the ditch, about the night air, about how easily these 3 could have been missed. The idea that someone else might come knocking, might claim them, settled uneasily in his mind. He realized he did not know their story yet. He only knew the part that had reached his door. As evening approached, the house filled with the ordinary sounds of his routine, now altered. He cooked dinner one-handed, glancing down every few seconds. The puppies played clumsily with each other, tumbling and pawing, stopping often to rest. Their energy came in short bursts, followed by sudden sleep. He smiled once without meaning to, when one tried to climb over the other and failed, then sat there looking confused. It surprised him how quickly his attention had shifted. He was not thinking about work emails or the trip next week. His world had narrowed to the small space with 3 lives unfolded quietly on his floor. Still, doubt threaded through it all. He wondered if he was getting attached too fast, if this closeness would make the inevitable handoff harder, if he was helping them or just himself. By the time the sun finally rose, he had not gone back to bed. He sat on the floor a few feet away, watching the puppies as they slept in a loose pile, their bodies rising and falling more evenly now. The smallest one twitched in its sleep, a soft sound escaping its nose. He wondered if they were dreaming or just reacting to warmth after a long night. He made coffee and let it go cold on the counter. Every few minutes he looked back at them, checking for movement, for breath, for any sign that this fragile calm might break. He searched online with one hand, slow and distracted, reading about how to care for puppies he had never expected to meet. He learned they were likely 6 or 7 weeks old. too young to be alone, too young to have survived long outside. That fact settled in his chest and stayed there. Someone had made a choice somewhere, and it had ended on his porch. He did not know yet what that said about him, only that the weight of it felt real. That night, he lay on the couch instead of his bed, not wanting to leave them alone. The room was dark, except for the glow of a small lamp. The puppies slept in a loose line now, no longer pressed tightly together. They trusted the warmth of the room. He listened to their breathing, uneven but steady. Outside, a dog barked somewhere far away. One puppy stirred, lifting its head, then settled again. He thought about the shelter, about fosters he might never meet. He thought about the woman on the road and what she might tell others. He wondered if someone would come tomorrow with questions, with claims, with answers he did not have. His phone buzzed once with a message from work. He ignored it. In the quiet, he let himself imagine small things, a vet visit, names maybe, though he stopped himself from thinking too hard about that. He reminded himself again of the plan: keep them safe, keep them warm, hand them over when the time came. Still, when the smallest puppy shifted and pressed its back against his leg, even in sleep, he felt something soften in him. He did not move, he did not reach down, he just stayed there, breathing slowly, aware that the line between temporary and something more was growing thinner, and that tomorrow might force him to decide which side he was really on. The next morning brought rain, a steady, quiet rain that darkened the windows and softened the world outside. He woke early again, stiff from the couch, and for a moment forgot where he was. Then he heard it, small movements, a soft thump as a tail hit the side of the box. He sat up and saw all 3 puppies awake, watching him. Their eyes followed him as he stood, expectant but not demanding. He stretched and rubbed his face, feeling the weight of another day settle on his shoulders. Rain meant they would stay inside. It meant fewer distractions. It meant more time. He filled their water bowl and warmed the rest of the rice and chicken. They ate eagerly now, no longer hesitant, their confidence growing with each meal. He wondered how quickly they would change, how quickly this moment would slip away if he did not pay attention. Mid-morning, his phone rang, a number he did not recognize. He answered, his voice careful. It was someone from a local rescue group, the one the woman on the road had mentioned. She thanked him for taking the puppies in and asked if she could come by to see them. His first instinct was to say yes. Transparency felt important, but something in her tone, professional and brisk, made him pause. He asked what would happen after. She explained the process: assessment, intake, placement. She said the puppies were lucky to have been found early. She said all the right things. Still, when she asked when would be a good time to stop by, he felt his throat tighten. He asked for a day, just one more day. There was a silence on the line, then she agreed. He hung up and stood there, phone in his hand, the rain tapping against the glass. One more day. He did not know why he needed it, only that he did. The puppies seemed different in the rain, quieter, more attentive. They followed him more closely as he moved around the room. When he sat on the floor, they approached, one by one, sniffing his hands, his sleeves, his knees. The smallest one climbed into his lap without ceremony, curling into the space as if it belonged there. He froze at first, then slowly rested his hand on its back. Its breathing slowed almost immediately. He felt the warmth through his jeans, the steady rhythm of a life trusting him without question. He told himself not to read too much into it. Animals sought warmth, that was all. Still, he did not move until his leg went numb. In the afternoon, the rain grew heavier. Water pooled along the road outside, turning the ditch into a shallow stream. He watched it from the window and thought about the night they must have spent out there, cold and wet and alone.
The thought made his chest ache in a way he did not expect. He wondered how close they had come to not making it to his porch at all. The realization brought with it a quiet sense of urgency. He pulled out his laptop and began looking for vets, reading reviews, checking hours. He told himself it was just information, just being prepared. But when he scheduled an appointment for the next morning, his hand did not hesitate.
That evening, he noticed the smallest puppy limping slightly when it walked. Not dramatic, just a subtle favoring of one leg. His stomach dropped. He knelt and examined it gently, checking the paw, the leg, looking for swelling. The puppy did not protest, only watched him with calm eyes. He could not see anything obvious. Maybe it was nothing, a sprain, growing pains. Still, the sight stayed with him. It added a new layer to his worry, a new reason the thought of handing them over felt harder. He wrapped them all in a clean blanket and sat with them, listening to the rain, the house quiet around them. As night fell, the rain began to ease. The puppies slept deeply, worn out from a day of small discoveries. He sat nearby, scrolling through photos he had taken almost without realizing it. 3 faces, 3 moments in time. He closed the app, suddenly uncomfortable with the idea of collecting memories he might not get to keep. His phone buzzed again, a message from the rescue confirming they would come the next day. He did not reply right away. He looked at the puppies instead, the way they lay sprawled now, unguarded. He felt a mix of relief and dread tangled together. Tomorrow would bring answers, or endings, or both. He lay back on the couch as the house settled into silence, knowing that whatever he decided, it would change something, and that the change was already closer than he wanted to admit. Morning came quietly, almost apologetically, as if it knew it was carrying something heavy. The rain had stopped during the night, leaving the air cool and clean. He woke before his alarm again, the puppies already stirring. The smallest one stretched and stood, testing its leg. The limp was still there, faint but noticeable. He watched closely, trying not to let worry take over too fast. When the puppy noticed him watching, it wagged its tail once and took a few steps toward him, uneven but determined. That small gesture, simple and unguarded, filled him with a fragile kind of hope. Maybe it was nothing serious. Maybe this could be handled. Still, the thought of the vet appointment sat in the back of his mind, ticking like a clock he could not silence. He packed them carefully into a borrowed crate lined with blankets. They protested softly at first, unfamiliar with the confined space, then settled as the car began to move. The drive was short, but it felt longer. He kept one hand near the crate, fingers brushing the edge as if that could steady them. Outside, the world went on as usual. People walked dogs on leashes, cars passed. No one knew what was happening inside his car, how 3 small lives had already shifted the shape of his days. At the clinic, the waiting room smelled faintly of disinfectant and wet fur. The puppies drew quiet attention. A receptionist smiled. Someone else leaned down to look, then straightened, their expressions softening. He filled out forms slowly, pausing when asked if he was the owner. He checked the box for temporary caregiver, the words feeling both true and insufficient. The vet was gentle and thorough. She examined each puppy in turn, listening to their hearts, checking their eyes and ears. They squirmed but did not panic. When she reached the smallest one, she noticed the limp immediately. She flexed the leg carefully, watching the puppy's reaction. "Probably a minor strain," she said, calm and measured. "Could have happened from a fall. It should heal with rest." He felt a rush of relief so strong it almost made him dizzy. No fractures, no lasting damage, just time and care. She talked about food, vaccines, next steps. He nodded, absorbing what he could. When she asked if he planned to keep them until the rescue took over, he hesitated just a fraction too long. She did not comment on it. Back home, the puppies seemed lighter somehow, as if the outing had expanded their world. They explored with more confidence now, tails wagging freely. The smallest one rested more, curling up near him whenever it could. He adjusted his movements to accommodate it without thinking. He worked from home that day, laptop balanced awkwardly, attention split.
During a meeting, he muted himself just in time to avoid explaining why 3 puppies were wrestling near his feet. He smiled despite himself. It struck him then how natural this was starting to feel, how quickly his routines had bent to include them. That realization brought a wave of doubt. Comfort did not mean permanence. He reminded himself of that. Comfort could be temporary too. In the early afternoon, his phone buzzed with a message from the rescue confirming they would arrive later that day. The words sat on the screen longer than he expected. He read them twice, then set the phone down. The puppies slept, worn out from the morning. The house felt unusually still. He walked from room to room, noticing details he had overlooked before. The quiet corners where sunlight tooled, the absence of clutter he had once valued. He wondered what it would feel like after they were gone. Quieter, certainly. Simpler. He tried to imagine that relief and found it hard to hold on to. When the rescue volunteer arrived, she was polite and efficient. She crouched to greet the puppies, letting them sniff her hands. They responded cautiously but did not hide. She asked questions about their behavior, their appetite, the limp. He answered honestly. She nodded, making notes. She spoke about foster placement, about how young puppies adapted quickly. She said they were resilient. He listened, grateful for her competence, unsettled by how smoothly the words came. When she reached for the crate, the smallest puppy let out a soft sound, barely more than a breath. He felt it like a tug inside him. He didn't know if it was fear or instinct or coincidence. Only he knew he didn't want to rush this moment.
He asked if there was any flexibility, just a little more time. The volunteer paused, considering. She looked at the puppies, then back at him. She said it might be possible if he was willing to continue fostering officially. Paperwork, expectations, a clearer commitment, even if it was not permanent. He agreed before doubt could catch up. The volunteer smiled, relieved. She left the crate where it was and handed him a folder. As she walked out, the house seemed to exhale. The puppies slept on, unaware of the negotiation that had just reshaped their immediate future. He sat on the floor beside them, folder unopened, listening to their breathing. Relief washed over him, followed quickly by something deeper and more complex. This was not an ending, it was a pause, a choice to stay a little longer in this in-between space. He did not know where it would lead. He only knew that for now, they were still here, and that the quiet connection forming between them was no longer something he could dismiss as accidental. Becoming an official foster changed very little at first, and that surprised him. The puppies did not care about forms or labels. They woke when they woke, slept when they slept, and filled the space between with small needs and simple joys. Still, something had shifted inside him. There was a new awareness now, a sense that time had shape again, measured in feedings, naps, and short bursts of play. He began keeping notes without being asked: when they ate, how much, which one tired faster. The smallest puppy's limp improved day by day, so gradually he almost missed it. One morning he realized it had crossed the room without hesitation, tail high, moving evenly. He sat back and watched, feeling a quiet satisfaction he did not share with anyone. The camera lingers on the puppy's steady steps. The rescue checked in regularly, short calls, practical questions. They talked about possible adopters in the future, about timelines that were intentionally vague. He appreciated that. It gave him room to breathe. Still, each mention of eventually tightened something in his chest. He told himself this was normal. Fosters were meant to care, not to keep. Attachment was part of the process, but it was not the goal. He repeated that to himself while cleaning up accidents, while waking in the night to small whines, while laughing softly at clumsy play. The words felt thinner each time. As the puppies grew, their personalities began to separate. One was bold, always the first to investigate a new sound. Another was thoughtful, hanging back before committing. The
The smallest one stayed close to him, not constantly, but often enough that he noticed when it wasn't there. It liked to curl against his side when he sat on the floor, head resting on his leg. He tried not to read too much into that either. Animals chose warmth, chose familiarity. Still, when he stood, it stood too, following until he stopped. The simple loyalty of it left him quiet for long stretches. Friends began to notice changes. He declined invitations more often. He talked about puppies in ways that surprised even him. When someone joked that it sounded like he'd become a dog person overnight, he laughed and changed the subject. He did not feel ready to examine that idea too closely. At night, he lay on the couch again, listening to 3 sets of breathing. The house no longer felt empty. It felt occupied, not just by bodies, but by presence. The thought of losing that presence crept in uninvited and lingered. One afternoon, he received an email from the rescue about a couple interested in meeting the puppies. They sounded ideal, experienced, stable, the kind of people he would have hoped for if he were reading the description from the outside. He stared at the screen for a long time before responding. He told himself this was the goal. This was success. The puppies deserved a home chosen with intention, not circumstance. He replied politely, agreeing to a meeting the following week. When he closed the laptop, the house felt quieter, though nothing had changed yet. The days leading up to the meeting stretched. He found himself watching the puppies more closely, as if trying to memorize details. The way the bold one tilted its head when confused, the thoughtful one's habit of circling twice before lying down, the smallest one's preference for sleeping with its back pressed against something solid. He tried not to read too much into that either. Animals chose warmth, chose familiarity. Still, when he stood, it stood too, following until he stopped. The simple loyalty of it left him quiet for long stretches. When the couple arrived, they were kind. They moved slowly, spoke softly. The puppies reacted well, curious but calm. He answered questions, demonstrated routines, pointed out small quirks. He watched the couple's faces as they interacted, noting the way their expressions softened, the way they laughed at the right moments. It was clear they were capable. It was clear the puppies would be safe. That knowledge brought relief, but not the kind he had expected. It was heavy, mixed with something that felt like grief arriving too early.
The smallest puppy approached the woman and climbed into her lap, curling there with the same ease it showed with him. He felt a sharp, irrational sting at the sight, then immediately felt ashamed of it. This was good. This was how it was supposed to work. He reminded himself that love did not mean possession. It meant letting go when the time came. Still, when the couple stood to leave and said they would be in touch, he felt the house tilt slightly, as if bracing for a change in gravity. That night, he slept poorly. The puppies sensed something, or maybe he imagined it. They were restless, shifting positions, waking more often. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet sounds of life continuing in the dark. He thought about the morning he had opened the door to cold air and uncertainty. He thought about how small choices had accumulated into something that now felt significant. He wondered if the puppies had come to his door by chance, or if chance was simply the word people used when they did not yet understand the shape of a turning point. In the quiet before dawn, the smallest puppy pressed close to him again, warm and solid. He rested his hand on its back and felt the familiar rise and fall. The camera lingers on his stillness, the quiet connection. He wondered if this was how attachment always felt at the edge of loss, not dramatic, just deep and steady, like something pulling slowly but firmly. The following days moved with a strange calm, as if the house itself were holding its breath. He kept to his routines, careful not to rush anything. Feedings happened on time. Short walks in the yard began, one puppy at a time, each experience new and slightly overwhelming. The smallest puppy stayed close to his heel, pausing whenever a sound startled it, then continuing once he did. He noticed how often he adjusted his pace without thinking, slowing so it would not have to hurry. These were small things, almost invisible, but they added up. Each day felt both ordinary and weighted, as if it were quietly preparing to become a memory. The rescue emailed again, confirming the couple's interest. They wanted to move forward. There were next steps, home checks, paperwork, a tentative pickup date. He read the message once, then again later, as if the words might change. They did not. He replied with measured calm, agreeing, thanking them, doing everything expected of him. When he set the phone down, his hands were shaking. He stood at the sink for a long time, staring at nothing, until the sound of a toy skidding across the floor pulled him back. The puppies were playing, unaware, fully present in the moment he was struggling to stay inside. That afternoon, he found himself talking to them more. Not commands, just commentary, explaining what he was doing, filling the quiet. He felt slightly foolish, but he did not stop. The bold one listened with its head cocked. The thoughtful one ignored him entirely. The smallest one watched his face, eyes steady. At one point, he laughed out loud at something none of them had done, and the sound surprised him. It had been a while since laughter came easily. He wondered when that had happened and whether he would notice when it left again. As the pickup day drew closer, the rescue suggested preparing a small bag for the puppies. Familiar items, a blanket, a toy, something that smelled like his home. The idea made sense. It also felt like a quiet acknowledgement that this chapter was ending. He chose carefully, not his favorite blanket, but one they had slept on often, a worn toy. He placed them in a bag and left it by the door, then avoided looking at it. Each time he passed, he felt a dull pressure behind his ribs, steady and persistent. The night before the pickup, he could not sleep at all. The puppies were restless again, as if sensing the shift in him. He lay on the floor beside them, the lights off, listening to the house settle. The smallest puppy crawled onto his chest, warm and solid, its weight grounding him. He rested his hand on its back and felt the familiar rise and fall. The camera lingers on his stillness, the quiet connection. He wondered if this was how attachment always felt at the edge of loss, not dramatic, just deep and steady, like something pulling slowly but firmly.
Morning came too quickly. He fed them one last time without marking it as such. He moved through the steps with care, memorizing the feel of it. When the rescue volunteer arrived, she was kind, respectful of the moment. She gave him space. The puppies greeted her happily, tails wagging, unburdened by the meaning he had attached to this day. He clipped leashes on with hands that finally steadied. The bold one strained forward. The thoughtful one hesitated. The smallest one looked back at him once before stepping outside. Just once. He told himself it meant nothing. Dogs looked back all the time. At the car, there was a pause. The volunteer asked if he was ready. He nodded. He handed over the bag with the familiar items, explaining what was inside. His voice sounded normal. He was proud of that. The puppies were loaded gently, one by one. Each door closed softly. When the car pulled away, the sound lingered longer than he expected, fading down the road until there was only quiet. He stood there for a while after it was gone, hands in his pockets, unsure what to do with himself. Inside, the house felt larger. The quiet was different now, not peaceful, just empty. He walked through the room slowly, noticing the absence of movement, the lack of small sounds. The floor was clean, the air still. He sat on the couch and stared at the space where the box had been. Relief came just as he had predicted it would. Relief that the responsibility had lifted. Relief that the puppies were on their way to something stable and chosen. But it was accompanied by a hollow ache that surprised him with its depth.
He let it sit there without trying to fix it. Later that day, the rescue sent a short update. The puppies were doing well, settling in, adjusting. There was a photo attached, all three together on a couch that was not his, toys scattered around them. They looked bigger already, more sure of themselves. He studied the image longer than he meant to, tracing familiar shapes that were already changing. He felt relief, genuine and warm. He also felt a quiet ache that had become familiar enough to greet without resistance. He replied with a brief message of thanks and closed the laptop. The house around him felt unchanged, but he was not. He began walking in the mornings, something he had not done in years. At first, it was just to fill time, to give his thoughts somewhere to go. He walked past the ditch where the woman had said she'd first seen the puppies. The water was low now, the ground firm. It looked harmless in the daylight. He stopped there one morning and stood for a while, trying to imagine three small bodies pressed together in that space, the night pressing in on them. The thought stayed with him long after he walked on. He realized then that the puppies had not just needed help. They had shown him something. How close quiet lives came to being overlooked. How easily responsibility could arrive without warning.
He noticed other things too. A lost cat sign taped to a pole, a neighbor struggling to carry groceries. Small moments that asked nothing directly but lingered in his awareness. He did not always act on them. He did not suddenly become someone else, but he noticed. And that felt like a shift worth acknowledging. One afternoon, he found himself checking the rescue's website without planning to, just looking, reading updates. He closed the page quickly, almost embarrassed, but the impulse surprised him. He told himself he was just staying informed, that was all. At work, he turned down the upcoming trip. He cited scheduling conflicts. It was not untrue, but it was not the whole truth either. When the plane tickets were canceled, he felt a small, unexpected sense of relief. His evenings were still quiet, but they no longer felt empty in the same way. They felt open. He rearranged the living room slightly, moving the couch back to its original place. The floor looked bare without the box. He considered filling the space with something else, then decided to leave it as it was. One Saturday morning, there was another knock at his door. Not scratching this time, just a clear, human knock. He opened it to find the rescue volunteer he had met before. She smiled, a little tentative. She said she was in the area and wanted to thank him again in person. She told him the puppies were thriving. She handed him a small envelope. Inside was a printed photo and a short note from the couple. They thanked him for giving the puppies such a strong start. They said they talked about him sometimes, about the man whose porch had been the first safe place. He nodded, unsure what to say. When she left, he stood there holding the envelope, feeling something settle into place. He placed the photo on the shelf by the window, not prominently, but not hidden either. It became part of the room, part of the story of the space. When he passed it, he felt a quiet warmth, not longing, not regret, just connection. The puppies were not his, but the experience had been real, and it had mattered. That felt like enough. That evening, he sat on the porch as the light faded, the air cool but not cold. He listened to the sounds of the neighborhood, familiar and steady. He thought about the first night again, about the hesitation, the fear of opening the door. He realized that what the puppies had wanted him to see was not something outside at all. It was the shape of his own capacity to respond, to care without guarantees. The thought stayed with him as the sky darkened. He did not know what would come next or when. He only knew that if the scratching ever came again, he would recognize it for what it was. And that recognition had already changed him more than he once would have believed. Even weeks later, the quiet in the house carried a new texture. It wasn't empty in the same way anymore. He noticed details he hadn't before, the way sunlight fell across the floor in the morning, the small creak of the stairs, the subtle hum of the heater. He walked through the room slowly, almost ceremoniously, as if tracing invisible paths the puppies had made while they lived there.
The house no longer felt like a space to fill or endure. It felt like a container for memory. He realized he thought about them several times a day without meaning to, imagining their paws on the floor, their noses exploring corners, the way the smallest one had pressed against his leg and chest with quiet trust. That memory was no longer just a story he told himself. It was part of the rhythm of his life. He took to writing again, something he hadn't done for years. Notes about work, notes about daily routines, and sometimes notes about the puppies. Not stories, not even descriptions exactly, just impressions. How one of them tilted its head when confused, how the smallest one had learned to follow his hand when he reached for it, how their small victories, the first confident steps, the first time they tried to climb the couch, felt bigger than they should have. Writing it down made him realize how attentive he had become, how much he had grown into the role of someone who noticed and responded, not out of duty, but out of care. Neighbors began to comment again, this time about small changes in him. "You seem calmer," one said. Another joked about the sudden interest in animals. He smiled politely, deflecting, though he knew the real change ran deeper than they could see. It was quiet and unspoken, carried in posture and pauses, in how he now lingered in moments longer than before. The world hadn't changed, only the way he moved through it. When he walked past the ditch where the puppies were first spotted, he paused briefly, remembering the night, the cold, the small shapes pressed together on the porch. He could feel that night still, and the way his chest tightened and released, like a shadow that was not quite gone, but not threatening either. One afternoon, he received a small update from the rescue. Another photo. The puppies were playing together in a fenced yard. The bold one had climbed a small ramp. The thoughtful one was sniffing every corner, cautious but curious. The smallest one was nestled between them, finally confident enough to explore more freely. He studied the photo, noticing familiar shapes and habits, the echoes of their time with him still visible. Relief washed over him, warm and steady. The photo became a quiet talisman on his shelf, a reminder that the world could be both ordinary and miraculous in its small, steady movements.
Evenings became his favorite time again. He would sit on the porch with a cup of tea, listening to distant sounds of life continuing. Cars, voices, a dog barking far away. He imagined the puppies somewhere out there, playing, growing, learning, thriving. The memory of holding them, guiding them, watching them find warmth carried with him in a new way. Not as possession, but as proof of what he could offer. The feeling was quiet, steady, something like pride and gratitude rolled together. He realized that experience had shifted him, reshaped his expectations of himself without fanfare or dramatics. He had learned that care could arrive unbidden, and that even when life moved on, its effects remained. He thought about the first night constantly, the scratching, the shivering, the hesitant steps onto the porch. It was a moment that had arrived unannounced, asking him to choose. He realized that choice had not been about the puppies alone. It had been about discovering his own capacity for responsibility, patience, and quiet attention. That night had stretched him, shaped him, prepared him to notice things that mattered even when they were small or easily overlooked. He understood now that this was what they had wanted him to see, not themselves, but his own willingness to respond. At times, a pang of longing returned. He missed their tiny bodies tumbling over each other. He missed the smallest one's soft whine when it woke in the night, but the longing was gentle, not sharp. He had seen them thrive. He had seen them safe. The ache had softened into something more like warmth, threaded with memory rather than loss. He realized that attachment and letting go were not opposites. They could coexist, and in that coexistence, he found something new, a sense of completeness he had not expected to feel. On weekends, he would sometimes walk near the area where the ditch had been, letting his gaze sweep the fields and roads, imagining the night they had been found. The memory was never far from him, but it no longer felt urgent. It was a quiet anchor, a reminder that small lives could alter the course of days, and that responsibility, when met with care,
could change a person without spectacle or fanfare. He watched birds, squirrels, and other small movements in the world, seeing them with a patience he had cultivated without realizing. He had learned to observe, to be present, to notice the ordinary as extraordinary. He kept the envelope and photo from the rescue visible on the shelf near the window where sunlight fell on it in the morning. It became part of the rhythm of his home. Every time he glanced at it, he felt a small, steady wave of satisfaction. It reminded him that life moved on, that beginnings and endings existed side by side, and that the connections he had made were not erased by distance or time. He did not need more than that. He had learned to hold the quiet power of memory and care, and that was enough. At night, as he closed the door and sat on the porch with only the sounds of the neighborhood for company, he breathed deeply. The air was cool. The sky darkened softly. He thought again about the night 3 small, shivering bodies had appeared at his door, about the choices that had followed, about the way his life had shifted quietly but irrevocably. And for the first time in a long time, he did not feel a pressing need to act, to change, or chase the next moment. He simply noticed. He sat there, aware, steady, and profoundly grateful. The world moved on outside, but inside, the weight of that first night had settled into something enduring, a quiet, unwavering understanding that life, in all its unexpected ways, had taught him how to hold and release without losing himself. He sat on the porch as the last light of day softened into evening, the world around him quiet in the way it always seemed after storms or long stretches of rain. The house behind him was empty in the sense that the puppies no longer filled it with movement or warmth, but it was not lonely. Their presence had left a trace, subtle but enduring, in the way he moved through rooms, in the small attentions he now gave to life outside himself. He thought about that first night, about the scratching and the shivering that had drawn him to the door, and he understood clearly that nothing would ever be quite the same. He did not feel regret, nor longing sharp enough to ache. There was simply a steady, quiet awareness of what had passed and what it left behind. He remembered the way the smallest puppy had pressed against his chest in trust, how the others had explored with cautious curiosity, and he felt a deep, steady gratitude, not for having them stay, but for having been able to care at all. The photo and the envelope from the rescue rested on the shelf, inside, a tangible reminder that love and care could arrive unexpectedly and depart just as quietly, leaving something lasting in their wake. Outside, a dog barked somewhere down the street. A bird called. The wind shifted slightly through the trees, and he noticed each sound with a clarity he had never had before. Life moved on as it always did, in rhythms too vast to control, yet he felt, for the first time, fully present in it. He inhaled the cool evening air, letting it fill him, steadying his heartbeat, and he realized that the lesson of those 3 small lives was simple. Care can change you, quietly and profoundly, and even when it ends, it leaves something that endures, shaping the way you notice the world and the lives that pass through it. For a long time, he just sat there, breathing, listening, and simply being, knowing that in that calm, in that quiet, he had found something permanent in the impermanence of life.